мы видим, что наступает самый мощный энергетический кризис за всю историю человечества. К нему абсолютно не подготовлена ни Европа, ни Британия. Мало того, они сами выстрелили себе в ногу, отказавшись от российских энергоносителей. И поэтому наш прогноз очень простой, что фактически наступит сейчас мощнейшая деиндустриализация в Европе, мощнейшие проблемы Британии. И все это связано просто с ошибочными решениями британских, европейских политиков по энергетике. И очень важно, чтобы мы эту тему поднимали, потому что когда там не будет, соответственно, бензина на заправках, когда не будет работы, люди в Европе, в Британии должны понимать, что это вот в результате этих ошибочных решений, абсолютно четких, понятных, Урсулы фон дер Лайен и других русофобских, европейских и британских политиков.
Any comment on NATO rejecting Donald Trump's crazy overtures to join this endless war?
Well, it was expected. This is a war that they didn't plan for. They didn't talk to our allies beforehand. And after you enter a war of choice to beg for help, it's actually pretty pathetic and embarrassing.
And last question, how...
And just so we set the record straight, because I've been watching the Wall Street Journal's fake news and all these stories that get printed like, oh, I want to make a deal. They are begging to make a deal, not me. They're begging to make a deal. And anybody that saw what was happening over there would understand why they want to make a deal. But they say, oh, we're not talking to them. Anybody would know that. And only a total fool. And they're not fools. They're very smart, actually, in a certain way. And they're great negotiators. I say they're lousy fighters, but they're great negotiators. They are begging to work out a deal. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I don't know if we're willing to do that. They should have done that 4 weeks ago. They should have done it 2 years ago. Or they should have done it when we first came into office, because 2 years ago they had free reign under Biden. Sleepy Joe, worst president in the history of our country. What he allowed to happen to our country at the borders, and even with a thing like this.
Israeli society has gone full fucking fascist. It's like Berlin, 1930. I would say they're not indoctrinated in the sense of, let's say, North Korea. They know exactly what's going on. They have more honest media than the US. They see exactly what they're doing. They see the footage. They know the kids are starving. They agree with it. And this is overwhelmingly displayed. This is not just anecdotal through my man on the street interviews when I was in Israel, which I was floored by in a period of relative calm. I mean, it's never relative calm for Palestinians, obviously, but this was in Jerusalem in a place called Tolerance Square, right in front of Zara, you know. And I'm talking to people from all walks of life. Every single person espoused genocidal rhetoric. Kill them all. Bomb them all, drop a big nuke, expel them. We don't want them here. I was floored. I couldn't wrap my mind around it, because until then I'd been kind of placated by politicians and media that the two-state solution was possible, right?
Well, dear friends, it is the 28th of March. I'm doing the 16th update on the war on Iran and the Global South. I'm doing less of them right now because it's more or less quiet, but I think we're going to be doing a lot more soon and a lot more regularly, because things are about to heat up. But by quiet, I don't mean there isn't a war going on and there aren't strikes. It's just it turned into a long-term, constant war of attrition, with more and more targets constantly being expanded into that list. But I think things are about to change because Trump needs a way out. After all, today is the 29th day of a conflict that was supposed to last 4 days. You know, when they say Russia was going to take Kyiv in 3 days, Russia never said that. In fact, that was never the aim. That was General Milley that said that, and it's now repeated as mantra by the trolls, by the idiots, and by the paid for, and the bots. That Russia was going to take Kyiv in 3 days. But Trump did very well say this will be over in 4 days. 29 days later, and Trump is in a panic. We see what people are saying in the intro videos, food for thought on the Trump's adventure. So, where do we begin with? Trump is now claiming that Iran has begged him, to give them 7 days of peace, which of course there haven't been any 7 days of peace. Attacks are continuing every single day, so let's not delude ourselves for a single second that President Win Bigley is going to do anything like, actually do a ceasefire. But yeah, I'm so magnanimous. I've given them 10 days. Well, not really. I mean, again, there are strikes going on. The thing is, the U.S. can't do very big strikes right now. What Trump needs those 10 days for is to get the Marines in and to get enough ammunition for 2-3 days of the super knockout blows. Of course, these super knockout blows are not going to take Iran off the map, and they're not going to break the back of the Iranian government or the military. But it's going to make a big picture because the entire Western media, the paid-for pocket monkeys known as journalists, are all going to be concentrating on, look, things blow up bigly. Yay! Look, we've gotten reports in, it was on various locations, published reports that Trump's daily briefings on the war are about 3 minutes long. It is just a montage of videos of things getting blown up because Mr. Win Bigley is winning bigly. Unfortunately, things blown up is only Iranian things blowing up. They don't show Israeli or Bahraini or American things blowing up. No, we'll get to that later, by the way, on all those counts. So Trump gets this view of, here's 3 minutes of action scenes of things blowing up. Oh, we're winning bigly. They're decimated. Well, maybe they are decimated, considering decimated means only 10% destruction. Again, all these people don't know what the frickin' words that they use actually mean. Decimated was what happened to Roman legions if they ran. Every 10th surviving soldier was put to death by the other 9. They drew straws. That was a decimation. Decimation is not annihilation. It's not destruction. It's not any of these other adjectives or adverbs, depends how you're using them, to describe an enemy that's been destroyed. You haven't razed the city, you've decimated. So every 10th building's destroyed, the other 90% are still in place, and so on with everything else. Learn the friggin' English language if we're using these words. And trying to sound big, because you're using quarter words, big boy. Mr. Big Winley's using them quarter words, big words. He don't just not understand what the hell they mean, so he just looks like an ignoramus. God bless his heart. That's your bit of a culture moment right there for you, ladies and gentlemen. And I do support the Southern culture and the Confederacy. I'm sorry, the South. The South to rise. Yeah, something like that. Southern history and culture. Let's just put it that way. So how do we know Trump is not gonna? Well, first of all, by the way, Trump. I think I've got it figured out. If you're not aware, there's these 2 Russian jokers / hackers, but they're not computer hackers, they're people hackers, called Vova and Lexus. So they call all these leaders from these different Western nations and pretend to be somebody else, and they get through on these calls. I've been on their show once. They actually have a show on top of it. And I talked to them, I was like, how do you get these people to tell you everything? They spill the beans. And they'll pretend to be Poroshenko, they'll pretend to be Adolf, the assistant of Merz with a little mustache, talking to the exiled wannabe prince of Persia. Yeah, they actually get away with this. And he's like, we don't do anything to hack their brains. They want to tell the truth. They want to spill the beans to somebody. And we provide this position. And they start talking. So I think they've been talking to Trump. I think they've gotten through. Because Trump is now telling the world, as seen the video.
And actually, they then apologized for something they said. And they said, we're going to send 2 more boats. And it ended up being 10 boats. And I hope I haven't screwed up your negotiations, but I thought it was appropriate to say, because I did taunt you the other day by saying they're going to give us a present.
Iran has gifted the U.S. 8 tankers of oil for peace because they really want to surrender. Well, I think actually the better point is like this. Facepalm. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm assuming he actually believes this trap. Yeah, I think he actually believes it. Um, but he's still getting ready for the big knockout blow. You see, they're already surrendered. They've given us 8 tankers of oil, or wherever the hell these tankers showed up from, which they, of course, they didn't. I doubt anybody in the White House is got the balls to quite literally to say, no, Mr. President, that's not true. You've been fooled again. And there are no 8 tankers of fuel. I mean, come on. You look at the 1920s reels, late 1920s reels of Soviet meetings under first Lenin and then Trotsky when he was actually more or less head of the Soviet Union before he got ousted by Stalin. And all these apparatchiks during the meeting, they get up and they all start clapping, and they would literally clap for 15, 20 minutes. There were people that actually passed out clapping to show adoration. They didn't particularly have that adoration, but they need to show it for the great leader that stood in front of them. Because that was part of the survival and promotion in structure in the early Soviet Union. You see the same thing if you ever watch the meetings of the Trump administration with the heads of the different secretariats. Okay, they're not sitting there clapping, but they're, oh, Mr. President, the economy is the bestest economy that ever was, because of you is the winnest, biggest president that ever could be. Oh, thank the Lord that you have come to save us all. You, the anointed president of everything. Oh, thank you, Mr. President. Oh, thank you. Can I stick my tongue up your rectum any further? Can I taste your lunch before you eat it first? That's the level. Some of those videos came out back in January, February, March of last year, and I caught wind of them, watched them. It's like, oh my God, this is where we're at now. Yes, sir, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're at. So I doubt anybody's actually told President Win Bigley that no, you don't have 8 tankers of oil, and the Iranians are not on their knees begging you for peace, and your knockout blow is going to look as stupid as everything else, except that you're probably going to send the Marines in, and maybe one of the brigades of the 82nd Airborne, the brigade that's always on standby that just got deployed to the Middle East. All that in one breath. So how else do we know that Trump is preparing for the knockout blow? Besides, that's Trump's typical rhetoric. We're negotiating. Get the extra body armor out. Get the steel glass windows up and prepare to be attacked. Yes, Mr. Trump, let's negotiate. This is the American view of negotiating. Murder off the people you negotiate with, and then wonder why nobody trusts us. They learn well from the Israelis. Yeah, the Israelis. Let's just be very blunt about who owns whom. So how do we know? Because MZD or MDZ. Let me see how the MBZ. What is it? Mohammed something, who's the president of the United Arab Emirates. That's 7 sheikdoms and a whole lot of 97% desert of these territories. So basically what used to be 7 small villages with 7 small warlords, but thanks to oil and their location, at the end of a lot more oil and gas, they became stinking rich, built cities in the middle of nowhere that can't survive without electricity and desalination plants because, there's no water, and most of those people just die off within 2-3 days of the water being cut. Has said that they're preparing to take the islands, that Suez, the Straits of Hormuz, or I'm sorry, as the video says, the Straits of Trump.
They have to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Excuse me for. I'm so sorry. Such a terrible mistake. The fake news will say, he accidentally said, no. There's no accidents with me, not too many.
He's semi-joking about this, but I'm pretty sure he's serious. The Straits of Trump they're going to take those islands back, which never really belonged to them in the first place. And by the way, they're right beside the motherland, the mainland of Persia or Iran. So no, you're not. But they gave us all a heads up. The UAE is going to, with the US, is going to attack those areas to, quote, seize the Straits of Hormuz. The great military power of the UAE, which has about 65,000 military personnel. So you got to figure maybe about 15, 20,000 actual combat soldiers, of what worth is questionable. But they do have a lot of American mercs. They pay them real well to come in there and train and lead. So there's going to be plenty of dead Americans from this stupidity, both from active duty and mercenaries in the UAE. Though I doubt it, a lot of those mercs are actually going to go up there and die. Mercs without dead mercs can't spend their salaries, so they have this tendency not to want to die fighting for some other nation that hired them. That's the problem with mercs. And the problem with mercs is they normally are the ones that get shoved up front because, again, dead mercs don't get paid. So that's the delusion, or that's the dilemma of anybody going in. And the delusion of Trump is he's going to get his knockout blow, and delusion of the United Arab Emirates, which is about to disappear as an entity, and probably have 7 very large post-apocalyptic cities. Because what is Iran going to do? It's going to destroy, not decimate. It's going to annihilate those desalination plants and the electric plants that power those desalination. Well, granted, you could power them on big enough diesel generators, but you got to have the diesel. But I'm sure they're all going to get taken out. And then if you're still in Dubai or any of these other, the other 6 Emirates, start stocking up on water now. Fill that bathtub, fill everything, because human being without water in a desert environment of 45 plus degrees Celsius, that's like about 110, 115 Fahrenheit for those that don't know the conversions. Ain't gonna survive more than a day without water, even sit in the shade. That water is just gonna evaporate straight out of you. So my advice, start filling up your bathtub, start filling out whatever you have with water, because the moment this strike goes in, your water supply ends. And there's going to be 7 post-apocalyptic abandoned cities by the end of all of this. And this entity known as UAE is going to cease to exist. But it's not that Trump cares. I mean, look, we know how Trump talks about his allies. I mean, he has nothing but absolute, well, he doesn't consider them allies. Of course, he has never really considered them allies. They consider them maybe client states or vassals. But he has absolute contempt for them, and he mentions it quite straightforwardly. You hear towards Saudi Arabia where, they now have to kiss my ass. And he quite literally says that. He's a crude little bastard, isn't he? Or he's not little, but he's definitely crude.
Missing right now? What is missing in leadership?
Well, it's winning. You got to win. I've watched a lot of people, leaders, great leaders. And, the one thing about sports is you break it down into, a 2-hour period, something nice. You don't have to wait a lifetime to find out if somebody a winner or a loser. You got a lot of losers, mostly losers, fortunately. It's a good thing to have a lot of losers. I always like to hang around with losers, actually, because it makes me feel better. I hate guys that are very, very successful, and you have to listen to their success stories. I like people that like to listen to my success. And I really believe we saved the Middle East. We saved not just Israel, we saved the Middle East. And it was proven by all those rockets that fired down upon you. Saudi Arabia got hit a lot. You all got hit, and nobody expected any missiles to be wasted. You would have thought they were only going at Israel. They weren't. As president of the United States.
So there's that in the video. And then he explains why MAGA is all behind him.
The MAGA base, I don't think so. You know why? Because MAGA wants to win, number one. Number two, they want our country protected. They don't want another country out there that's hostile and crazy to have a nuclear weapon. And number three, they like us protecting certain allies, whether it's Israel or Saudi Arabia or Qatar or UAE, any of them. They want that. MAGA wants strength.
Well, what's left of MAGA is behind him. I mean, he's right on that. I mean, you listen to the video, and he's absolutely right on what he says about MAGA, because everybody that voted for him to stop these wars, to balance the budget, to take care of the country, they've all left. And the last third are the groupies that will bow and kiss Trump's arse and buy Trump's and Melania coins, even if that cost them, the month's electric bill, because they want to be part of Trump's groupie thing. They are groupies. They are, a lot of them are actual religious fanatics in the Christian Zionist heresy. And they will do anything for their anointed. So yeah, so the ones that are left in MAGA are actually, that's very true. They are what they are. Trump knows these clowns. He knows these clowns very, very well. So there you go. And he knows the clowns in the UAE, which, by the way, the UAE has some combat experience. They got their butts kicked by the Houthis. And they may be getting their butts kicked by the Houthis again. We'll see. We'll see, of course. The Houthis have now declared war, and they're in this war fully. So we'll see what happens, by the way, to the Ford, which is now steaming out. I guess maybe the Ford's already left the Red Sea at this point. And George Bush Sr. is coming in to get its comeuppance from the Houthis. So we'll see. We'll see on that. So what do we know about the freedoms of America? Well, we're going to listen to a couple of videos.
If you target Jewish students, your actions will not disappear into the darkness. We will shine a light on you that, thanks to Google and SEO, will follow you for the rest of your life. When you look for a job, when you look for a spouse, when you look for a nanny, when you look for anything, our work will always be documented, again, thanks to Google and SEO. In corporations where DEI leaders smeared Israel, excused Hamas, we pressured CEOs. Some resigned, many were terminated, but policies were changed, thankfully, from governmental to art institutions. Online, where anonymous accounts spread violent threats, we traced patterns, elevated evidence, and worked with authorities, leading to arrests from Florida, South Carolina, New York, California, and Texas. And we're not slowing down, sadly. Today, Stop Anti-Semitism, I'm proud to say, runs one of the most robust anti-Semitic enforcement operations in the United States, monitoring campuses, digital networks, activist groups, and public officials, documenting incidents in real time and mobilizing millions of people, of allies that are quietly by our side. But the fight is bigger than the exposure, and it's about securing a future where Jewish students can walk across a quad without being screamed at, a future where employers understand that anti-Semitism is not activism, it's bigotry, and it will cause you to lose your job.
So, for example, a silencing mechanism could look like abolishing the First Amendment rights of Americans to silence anti-Israel sentiment. Like that.
20 years imprisonment for Americans participating in boycotts of Israel.
It can also look like silencing through intimidation. So that's also what the Twitter of one of God's chosen people happens to look like, apparently. Number 2, the strong narrative component of a PSYOP. That phrase is repeated obnoxiously often, usually in defiance to reality and your common sense. An example.
There's your freedoms. So when you're told your freedoms, the soldiers in Iraq are fighting for your freedom, or other such things. When you're told that, your freedoms are in Afghanistan, they're defending your freedoms in Afghanistan. First of all, I never could understand these American freedoms, because, when I served, it was the same thing. You were constantly told that. Whatever the new battlefield is, you're fighting for the freedoms of America. Really? I mean, I don't know why I have these freedoms that keep getting lost, getting drunk and lost in some foreign country on the other side of the world, and I have to go grab them and pull them out of Afghanistan or Iraq or Yugoslavia because my freedoms have gone off there for some freaking reason. Well, I know definitely where those freedoms are not. They're not in America. Because you think you have a freedom of thought, you have your freedom of speech, you have a freedom of religion. The only freedom of religion you have is the Zionist heretic religion. Because if your religion says anything about Israel that isn't praiseworthy, that isn't bootlicking, if you have any view of, say, the IDF as a psychopathic genocidal entity that murders women and children across the entire region, what were you just told? We will make sure you can't even hire a nanny. We'll destroy your jobs, your lives, and everything. Because we own you. We own your government. We own your media. We own everything. And if you say we own it, you're bad and anti-Semite and have to be punished. As for traditional Jews, the ones are not psychopathic entities like Zionism. Well, here's from that views Zionism as a heresy, just like Christianity views Christian Zionism as a heresy. Here's a video from one of the chief rabbis of traditional Judaism. Listen to what he says. It's quite interesting.
So you think that Jewish communities abroad paid a social or security price for policies they did not choose to support?
Certainly. Jewish people, especially people who are visibly Jewish, when I travel in the airport, unless I have my kafir, I'm scared that people would misunderstand who I am. And unfortunately, people see somebody visibly Jewish, they associate it automatically with Zionism, with the state of Israel, and with these crimes. And this is unfair because I don't deserve this. I don't support all of this.
Have you ever been personally threatened?
I was threatened by the Zionist movement. I was threatened by Zionists. But you can ask, and you might want to ask, whether I felt myself in danger when I visit Muslim countries, or I visit Gaza, or I attend pro-Palestinian rallies in Italy or any place of the world. And my answer is no. I never have a problem. I make sure to be visibly not the enemy, and I have no problem. Nobody hates me because I'm Jewish. People might have guilt feeling towards some Jews because they associate them with the state of Israel.
So yeah, we figure out who the enemies of society are in this case. So now that we've discussed, and I almost forgot, I'm sorry, two things I forgot from the first block. One, the U.S. is getting all of its little cult bastards, whether they're Zionist psychopaths or Nazi psychopaths together, for this upcoming event. Zelensky traveled to the UAE and met with MBZ, the president of the UAE, who said, we're going to take the islands. Well, the Americans and us are going to take the islands. And Zelensky's offering to aid the United Arab Emirates in their effort, to take the islands. I guess Ukrainian Nazis will be there training more terrorists. Because they do that. They do that all throughout Africa. They do that all throughout Europe now. Europeans have no concept of what is already happening, let alone what's going to be happening in their vassal statelets or their provinces of the greater EU. And the US, by the way, and Israel, the Israelis who scream, war crimes! They're all war crimes! That missile has multiple warheads! It's all war crimes! We get hit back! It's war crimes! How dare they hit us? It's war crimes! Never mind, we massacred 500,000 women and children because they're not real people anyways! It's all war crimes! The entitlement is sickening. I mean, you could choke on that entitlement. I don't know how half of Israel hasn't died off from entitlement. By the way, Israel does have, let's be honest, there's a large large enough. I mean, 20% so far, but I'm thinking it'll be growing. Segment of society that is against what the racist Zionist government says, does. People are willing to go to jail, not to go fight and murder women and children. Protests are breaking out more often. People are getting vocal. They want the government out. They don't want these racist policies in. Unfortunately, there's still only 1/5 of the population, but I think this is going to keep growing. In fact, the head of the Israeli army said if we don't change something, Kutz, the defense minister, okay, he's actually a defense minister. Don't remember the name of the head of the army, the general, that if we don't change something, the army is going to collapse. And it's going to collapse. First of all, I mean, what are the things they're doing? Not only are they dropping white phosphorus is not illegal to use in warfare. Let's just begin with that. That is a misconception. That is a misnomer. And if some countries have signed a document that they're not going to do it, most countries haven't. White phosphorus is used in several instances to burn out enemy entrenched positions and as a smoke generator. However, using white phosphorus on residential civilian areas where our civilians are located, no, that is illegal. That is a war crime. It's no different than cluster bombing. Oh, wait, that's what Iran. I mean, that's what Israel and the U.S. is doing to Iran. They're dropping cluster munitions with mines. There's different ways of doing cluster munitions. Cluster munitions are bomblets. And supposedly, if you listen to the U.S. military, only 5% of them don't explode on contact, which is bullcrap. Total, it's more like 30% don't explode on contact. And they're designed to do little minefields like that, but they're mostly, they explode in the air as they're coming down or as they hit the ground, and they cover a large area with shrapnel. Most of them won't do any real damage to any heavily armored vehicles, but personnel out in the open, like, for example, infantry advancing across an open area or traveling in a column in the rear, it does a lot of damage, obviously, to it. It doesn't have a lot of damage to civilians. Why would we know about that? Because the Ukrainian Nazis, with America's absolute blessing and ammunition, have been doing this for the last 12 friggin' years. Dropping cluster munitions. Oh, and cluster mines. In this case, the American ones look like little tin cans, as opposed to the little petals that the Ukrainian army was dropping, old Soviet cluster munitions. Because you can also drop cluster munitions that are strictly mines, and you mine an area, randomly mine an area, so demining is a pain in the arse. And these are usually small mines, enough to take a foot off or a hand off, if for a civilian. Of course, a child, it's a whole different reality. And they are now dropping them on residential villages. There's pictures of them on rooftops. War crime? Oh, hell yes, it's a war crime. For America, though, war crimes? I mean, seriously? What do we give a damn about war crimes? Human rights? International human rights? Look, I was just on a panel discussion. in RT. I'll put the whole 15 minutes of it ahead, so if you don't want to listen to it, you can skip forward, but I think it's worth listening to for most people. You're not going to see RT in the West for the most part, because, you have freedoms and all that. Oh, I'm sorry, your freedoms got lost somewhere else. So much for your freedom of information, so much for freedom of speech. Or by the way, APEC's going to come after you or one of its subsidiaries. There's that moment. But listen to this conversation. And Mr. Cohen, Stanley Cohen, one of the people on there, human rights guy, I do disagree with him. He's a Jewish guy who's fighting against the Zionist state. I do disagree with him, and I do that, and I mention that when he talks, if you're in the global north, you're white and you're Christian or Jewish, you don't need to be afraid because it's all against the non-Christian, non-Jews, non-white people. Well, no, that doesn't work. And I mentioned that because if you happen to be Slavic and Orthodox, let's say Yugoslavia, Serbia, or Russians in eastern Ukraine, you need to worry about it. You're just as much of a victim. Or if you happen to be Orthodox or Catholic and say, Syria, Iraq, Libya, Lebanon, Palestine, because 10% of the Palestinian population are Christians, 33% of the Lebanese population are Christians, 20% of the population in Iraq was actually in Syria, was Christian, and about 15% of the population in Iraq was Christian. There are almost no Christians, thanks to the Americans. American occupation in Iraq. And while we're at it, over 1 million Christians in Iran, practicing Christians with members in the military and officers in the military, with members in parliament. Oh, yeah, that's right. If you're listening to the American news, you don't know about that. They're telling you about how they're going to have Christianity there, how they're going to free the women there from oppression. You know, the women that are professors, politicians, able to drive their own cars. Imagine that. That's supposed to Saudi Arabia. Able to get a full education and be professionals, you know, because they're oppressed, or some such that everybody's told. So,
all right, let's put all this now to a panel of guests. I have with me Stanley Cohen, attorney and human rights advocate. I also have with me Alexandra Guerrero, international law analyst and academic, and also Stanislav Krapivnik, former U.S. Army officer, joins me as well. Gentlemen, I'm glad to have you all join me right now. So, Stanley, let me start with you. If all sides in the conflict are all accusing each other of war crimes, does the very concept of war crimes still carry the weight that it was originally supposed to?
Well, the hypocrisy and the arrogance of Israel, which has been held under a standard of palpable findings of genocide by the ICJ. The ICC has indicted for genocide and war crimes Netanyahu. There's an arrest warrant outstanding for him. The U.S. slaughtered 175 or 200 children. The U.S. and the United Nations murdered 500,000 Iraqi children as a result of the sanctions years ago. The notion that Israel or the United States, which has funded the genocide in Gaza, is now arrogantly upset over what's been happening, and Israel saying you're targeting civilian infrastructure or population. It's destroyed Gaza. It's killed hundreds of thousands of civilians in Gaza, most of them, or the majority of them, children. It's destroyed every hospital, every school, every aspect of the infrastructure. So when Israel and the United States, its primary financier, points a finger at someone else and says, war crimes and you shall pay, they need to look in the mirror. There are no greater war criminals or supporter of genocide in my lifetime than Israel and the United States.
All right, Alexandra, let me come to you now. The UN suggests that there are reasonable grounds to believe violations are happening on all sides. But will that even amount to anything if accountability mechanisms remain weak or absent?
Well, what I can see is that first we need official reports. We need investigations on the ground. I don't see that happening. What I see is always the same type of narrative, to try to blame Iran for any kind of use of force against either Israel or against any other kind of targets. And if we take a look, we can see, for example, that through the death toll, we can see who is really committing the, war crimes. We can see that by Israel, we can see it by the United States, but when we compare the attacks made or performed, the responses given by Iran, we can see that we have some injured people, which we can consider to be collateral damage, and under international law, maybe they can be accepted and recognized as collateral damage and allowed to be so. Because we don't see many people dying. We don't see an intent to attack civilian infrastructures. What we see is the use of following the criteria of that international law demands when responding to an armed attack, which are the necessity criteria and also the proportionality, which usually governs how much total force is permissible. So I haven't seen anyone on the ground trying to demonstrate or showing any kind of evidence that Iran is committing war crimes. Iran is answering, is fighting back. And this is a kind of concern, especially for the strategy and for the agenda of both Israel and the United States.
Right. Now, Stanislav, Trump has referred to the operation in Iran as unprecedented. Now, from a military perspective, what new tactics are we seeing in this conflict? And how does it differ in terms of strategy and warfare compared to previous military operation in the region?
Look, there's nothing particularly unprecedented about this. The initial attempt, as usual, was to decapitate the government. Problem is in Iran, the United States has butted heads against a civilization state as opposed to, say, Iraq, which is a small clique of people that ruled the country with various nationalities that ripped it apart relatively quickly. In a civilization state, you have a history of between 3,000 to 5,000 years, depending where you stake your starting point. You have a civilization idea, an idea that people are willing to give their lives for, not just because there's some ruler sitting on the throne. The United States doesn't know how to deal with that because it's used to dealing with small dictatorships, often the ones that they themselves put into power. Now, as far as tactics, look, once the decapitation strikes proved futile, they start working to try to destroy the military, and when that becomes futile, because the military is in hardened positions and hard to find, they usually go over to mass extermination of the local population. We've seen this ever since air power first showed up. Look, the United States and the British wiped out 5 million German civilians in World War II. They wiped out, in just one massive air raid on Tokyo, they killed 500,000 people, firebombing them. They firebombed every single German city. They even firebombed a lot of northern French villages and cities and killed about 70,000 French where there were no German soldiers. In Vietnam, 3 million people. In North Korea, when the Korean War was going on, American pilots complained they couldn't find a target to bomb anymore because they had destroyed Pyongyang fully, razed it from the ground. And the aim was to kill the civilian population, to, quote, break the back of the enemy. And this has continued on. This is the exact same tactic, just different location. It will not work. It never has worked. Air power has never conquered any nation. If anything, it actually just pisses the people off and gets them rallying around the flag. They may not like their government, but they know that their government isn't the one that's killing their families. They see where the bombs are coming from. They're not going to go fight for the government that's murdering their families. So no, the United States is not doing anything new. It's just continuing to do the exact same thing, lather, rinse, and repeat. Just a different nation and a different group of people to try to genocide.
All right, Stanley, let me come back to you now. Given the limited impact of international law in modern conflicts that we are seeing now, especially involving major powers, does the very concept of international law still have weight?
No, it doesn't. I mean, the Nuremberg tribunals charged numerous military and infrastructure Germans with war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Increasingly, over the last 50 years since then, 70 years since then, we see a double standard. If you're a person of color, or if you're a person of faith, if you're a Muslim, you're a legitimate target. If you're white, if you're a member of the global north, you're not. So the United Nations in particular, when we talk about the lack of enforcement, they have the ICJ, but unless a tribunal is established, which could take years to reach conclusions, there's no enforcement. The United Nations highest court, the ICJ, has handed down rulings against Israel, now 15, 20, 25 years old, that Israel smirks at, laughs, and could care less. There has to be a revisit. International law continues to be beaten up every day by the Security Council, which is controlled by 5 individuals with some other states that sit every once in a while. So international law began with a glimmer of hope after World War II, but in the years since, it has clearly been applied against a select group of people and ignored enforcement mechanisms from the global north. If you're white, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, you get a pass. If you're anyone else, even if you do not engage in violations of war crimes, a finger is pointed at you, which is happening right now. People have a right of self-determination. People have a right of self-defense. People who are occupied have a right to armed struggle. It is the West that continues to bomb, drop bombs all over the place with impunity. It is everyone else that, when they choose to resist, the finger is pointed and they're accused. Accusing Iran or accusing Palestinians or accusing anyone else that's been subject to this kind of vicious genocide and occupation is the penultimate example of the double standard between the global north and the global south.
All right. Now, Alexander, the U.S. ambassador to the UN has claimed that Iran cannot critique other countries for violations of international law as it itself breaks it. Now, doesn't also work vice versa when considering Washington's track record?
Well, that is certainly the traditional perspective that Western officials have been pursuing for at least the last 5 to 6 decades. This is the so-called rules-based order, which makes them take a look on the problem when committed by one party, one specific party, in a specific way, and then they change and they look at it in a totally different way when it is committed by someone that's close to them. We shouldn't take this so serious as we usually do, because we know that Western officials, usually they tend to protect interests, not to protect exactly what is international law. I want to remember which were the words from John Bolton, which actually President Trump tends to follow this perspective when he said that there is no such thing as international law. What there is the use of force and some agreements celebrated and signed between states from time to time. I have to disagree with this perspective, and also this is not the perspective of the majority of the United Nations member states. We must continue believing in international law. There are rules, there are norms that must be followed. We cannot have what is called double standards, which is what we usually have on, and the example that is given to us by European and Western officials. They tend to hide, they tend to protect war crimes committed by Israeli and United States officials for a very long time. And when I see, for example, that the International Criminal Court could have been a very promising project if it wanted and if it showed willingness on addressing war crimes, at least committed by Western officials, and then I see that this is a lost opportunity. We already saw how the International Criminal Court dealt with crimes committed by American officials, the British officials as well, not only in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and elsewhere in the world. They tend to close their eyes, they tend to use the double standards, and then what we find out in the end is that we see these Western officials trying to blame always the same type of governments that do not have exactly the same, do not share the same values as they do. So we must take a look at this with a pinch of salt, because we know that Western officials usually tend to have a position on international crisis in a specific perspective. How can we protect our own interests and not how to address global and international scourges?
All right, Stanislav, if no one is held accountable, what does this mean for civilians caught in conflict zones? Does the idea of legal protection still exist in any meaningful sense on the ground?
Look, to begin with, I need to slightly disagree with my colleague there, Mr. Cohen. Being white and being Christian is no guarantee that you will not be exterminated the same way by the Western powers. One needs to only look at Yugoslavia. One only needs to look at Eastern Ukraine, where the white is a Slavic population, which, by the way, is half the white population in the world, are Slavs. And Orthodoxy is the religion. The United States committed the exact same genocidal crimes against the Serbs in Yugoslavia, continues to occupy Serbian lands. American proxies in Ukraine committed the exact same murderous attacks for 8 years against, 12 years if we're counting since the SMO started, against the Eastern Ukrainian population, which are Russian and Orthodox. Large parts of my family are on that front line, have been shelled for 12 years. Myself, I am from Lugansk, so that is my hometown. So yes, and Orthodox and Catholic Christians in Syria, in Iraq, have been exterminated by Western-sponsored Sunni jihadist Islamics, which have no problem using those particular people to do their dirty work. So no, it's much more complex. It doesn't just run by skin color. It doesn't just run by religion. These are people that are destroying other human beings, are not religious, in particular Christians. They may be a sect called Christian Zionism, which is a heresy to Christianity. They may be a sect called Jewish Zionism, which is a heresy to traditional Judaism. These people are satanic. There's no other way to put it for the things they do. They are the Epstein elites. And no, for the Epstein elites, there are no human rights. I mean, these are people who are literally willing to rape, murder, and eat the children of their own people. What are they going to do for people that are not their own people? Whether they're white, whether they're brown, whether they're black, whether they're Christian or Muslim. Let's not forget the genocide that was committed in the Philippines when America fought against the Philippine insurgency for 4 years and wiped out 20% of the population. Yes, they weren't white, but they were very, very Catholic. So that didn't defend them either. These are people that are looking first and foremost at their own pocketbooks, at their own very skewed religious beliefs, which are heresy to the mainline religious beliefs, Abrahamic faiths. And they're working off of this foundation, and they don't really care who their victim in the end is, as long as the results is whatever their skewed sectarian view is, and they get money, particularly the neocons. They get money and control hegemony over the world.
All right, we have to leave you here now. Stanislav Krapivnik, former U.S. Army officer, thank you very much. We also had Stanley Cohen, attorney and human rights advocate, and Alexandra Guerrero, international law analyst and academic. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Kent, I'm beginning to believe maybe Kent really is the real thing instead of being a plant. Kent goes and tells the truth about the Zionists while we're on the issue of Zionists. Zionist coalition and their the Zionist coalition in America, the Zionist coalition in Israel, and their happy-go-lucky use of Islamic jihadists, Sunni Islamic jihadists, to massacre Christians, by the way, Alawites, Shia, and so on. So there, watch the video.
In Damascus, forming that crescent, that land bridge of Iranian supplies going right into Israel's backyard. So the Israelis at the end of the Iraq war were like, no, this is not going to work at all. We have to break this up. We have to go to war in Syria. We have to take down Assad. Arab Spring happened. There was some energy from the people. I think it was somewhat organic. But then in short order, we came in and we said, we're going to work with the Israelis, but we're also going to have to work heavily with the Sunni population on the ground in Syria to create an uprising. And that's where ISIS came from. We worked directly with Al-Qaeda. Hillary Clinton's emails confirm this. The operations that we were doing to support the so-called Free Syrian Army, and there were some moderates there, but the most effective guys initially were Al-Qaeda and then eventually ISIS. Now, obviously, ISIS got out of control, and they started plotting attacks in Europe. They started plotting attacks in America. They took over large swaths of Iraq. So we then had to go back and put out once again the brush fire that we had started and go after ISIS. And that's where I lost my late wife. But Israel was the driving factor in that. We took down Saddam, who was a strong man against Israel. We then had to go in and take out Assad, who was a strong man against Israel as well. And now this is the third phase. We're going now into Iran to take out that strong government for Israel.
Who did we put in charge of Syria?
Oh, we handed that whole, well, again, we screwed the whole thing up so much
we handed it to a leader of fucking Al-Qaeda.
Yep. He was in ISIS initially. He was in Al-Qaeda initially in Iraq, fighting against us. We had him in jail, joined ISIS, broke off from ISIS, hand-selected by bin Laden's right-hand man, Ayman Zawahiri, to lead Nusra. And then they rebranded. And this is the number one way to fool Americans as a jihadist is just put on a suit and get a good PR company. And then apparently we'll just believe whatever you say.
There's videos of this guy holding people's heads that he cut off.
Yeah, he's the thug.
He's shaking
he's a brutal
President
terrorist.
Trump's hand.
Yeah, horrible advice. Yep. And so
what the fuck?
And you get to hear more of reality. That reality nobody wants to talk about in the West because, it's not really nice. By the way, ever wonder how many construction projects, real estate projects Trump has tied up in the Middle East? Look right there on the screen. You get that image of all his construction projects and what states they're in. So he has vested interest in this area, though I think he's doing everything to make sure his own projects get destroyed. But that's because President Win Bigley is just so tired of winning. Bigley constantly winning. It's so exhausting to win because he's winning. Every day he's winning. Every day he's destroyed Iran. He destroyed Iran in the morning to the evening, lets them rebuild a little bit at night, and he rebuilds them again, destroys them again so he can win Bigley one more time. It's exhausting to win Bigley. Mr. Win Bigley is an exhausted man because he's constantly winning Bigley. We don't know how the Iranians keep firing, but he keeps winning Bigley. He Bigley wins all the time. That's his moniker now is President Win Bigley. Delusional? Absolutely. But hey, Win Bigley. You gotta believe in yourself. You're winning Bigley, or what else is there to do? And like I said, we saw Trump's true contempt for his allies, but that's all part of being a big winner. It's hard to be a winner.
He didn't think he'd be kissing my ass. He really didn't. He thought he'd be just another American president that was a loser, where the country was going downhill. But now he has to be nice to me. You tell him he better be nice to me. He's got to be. But it was really something. He said, though, it's amazing, President, because he's a very smart, but a regular kind of a guy. He said, it's amazing, President. A year ago, in that case, it was a year and a half. It was 6 months ago. But a year ago, you were a dead country. Now you're literally the hottest country anywhere in the world. And that was before we beat the hell out of Iran.
Oh, Lord have mercy on our souls. So, in broader news, Uganda is now threatening to enter the war against Iran. Yeah, you heard that right. It's one of those moments. Do I laugh or do I cry? But if I'm crying, I'm crying from laughing hysterically. How much of a laugh should I add to this one? Uganda, friggin' Uganda, is threatening to attack Iran. With what? Where's Uganda? Where's Iran? How are you going to do this? Or is every little American tin pot wannabe is trying to kiss up to Trump's arse? Get his tongue up there, far up and hard and far up there. So we'll hear, who else are we going to see here? St. Kitts is going to attack Iran next. They'll send their little one boat and a couple of guys on there. Maybe Jamaica will attack Iran. Where else can we put a couple of these superpowers? Now, I'm sure the Iranian government is just ready to collapse from the Ugandan regime threatening to strike them. They're probably all grabbing their suitcases and running for the airport as we speak. Uganda, baby. But Erdogan, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Erdogan has told the Arabs not to join the American coalition. Well, he sends 57 ships, as I said before, 57 friggin' tankers full of oil, even ones heading for Europe, get redirected to Israel. By the way, the Israelis, because, they are the power behind Win Bigly, have now asked the Greeks, well, now they're asking, soon they'll just be taking, to sell them islands, part of the Aegean Islands, for the safety of Israel. Never mind, there's, by the way, oil and gas there, too. So where's Greece? Where's Israel? I guess Cyprus, they're buying up real estate anyways in South Cyprus, the actual Republic of Cyprus, as opposed to the Turkish occupied Northern Cyprus, illegally occupied, but who cares? It's not like international law really matters at this point, or has since the 70s. But yeah, who cares? But the Greeks have too many damn islands. There ain't enough Greeks in there anyways. They're not breeding and they're dying out. So hey, why don't you just sell us the islands? If you don't, we'll take them anyways. Actually, they're asking to rent them, rent to own. Yeah, rent to own. And they'll have safety bases there for the Israeli population, set up settlements. There you go, Greeks. How much did you want to be in Israel's pocket? Yeah, well, they're going to take you a piece at a time out of that pocket and put it in another pocket. Gotta love this. After all, it turns out it's not just the river to the river, but it's the coastline to the coastline. I guess they get to keep all the islands in the east of the Mediterranean too. I mean, maybe those were promised somewhere down along. That was the mini script at the bottom. Oh, and the islands of the eastern Mediterranean. Oh, and the Italian peninsula and all this other. Hell, the whole world's yours. Just take them and exterminate everyone else there, and you can populate the whole world with just yourselves. Just keep enough of those smart ape animals to be your servants. I'm sure there's somewhere in the Zionist mentality, it's all there, baby. It's all there. Keep believing it isn't. So, what else have we got? Oh yeah, Iraq's free. It only took a war with Iran for Iraq to finally end the occupation of Iraq. The democracy, the model democracy that America set up. The model democracy has been asking the U.S. and NATO to get the hell off their lands for the last 10 years, and the U.S. has been telling them to go pound sand. So the unofficial militias in Iraq besieged the American bases, something that Trump for 25 days wouldn't say a word about, even though the green zone was burning every day and getting hit every day. Well, then we hear about various contingents, as I put in my previous video, various contingents of Poles, Swedes, others being allowed to leave, Spaniards being allowed to go to the airport, get on a plane, get the hell out, the various vassals of the American Empire. And then now, by the way, the remaining U.S. forces, I guess they're not going to need a convoy to come save them. They've actually been allowed to leave. And this long convoy is just whoop, 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 going by. You see in this video.
امريكان لا جات مكافحة الارهاب بس هذا شنو من الرتل؟ شنو هذا من رتل؟ لا والله كله عجاد سيارات شلون ابطل في السياره عفوا شوف بس هذا عم الرتل هذا مخيف بس برايك ذولا شنو ذولا حكي؟ مالت الجهاز ها؟ ما حركوهم من اللي هناك ما وين؟ مال الانتشار بس يطلع هذول ينتظرون هذول يفوتون
لا in Iraq, when I put this on X, the American military has been kicked out of Iraq, and somebody asked, Iraq, is this so? Because, you know, you can't think for yourself without having the AI, the overhyped search engine fed bullshit and spewing out bullshit back to you, telling you, no, it's actually in the wrong light. They're presenting this as some kind of PR win for the Iraqis. It's really not that. They're just repositioning themselves out of Iraq. Okay, Baghdad Grok. You know, tell how it is for the mindless to believe whatever bullshit that your owners wish to push through for the day. If you haven't gotten the point that AI, these AI search engines are telling you things, are there just to push the propaganda more efficiently because they've converted a bunch of people that are moronic to begin with into mass morons that can't think for themselves, but now have an AI to tell them what to think. They don't have to go read anything. The AI can voice it for you. They know your opinion. They'll tell you your opinion if they want to hear it. You know, if I want to hear your opinion from you, I'll tell it to you. That's what AI is there for, baby. Better control of the masses. So you don't have to think at all. The AI will tell you what to think. So anyways, Iraq does expel American forces out. And Iraq gets hit. Now, not Iraqi militias, but an actual Iraqi base gets hit by a U.S. military. Casualties, of course, killed and wounded. And Iraq is basically declared war on America. We're back to 1991. Except there is no U.S. Army the size that it was before, and things have gotten much worse, and Iraq and Iran aren't enemies, they're actually allies. So it's not just the militias now, it's now the Iraqi government. Congratulations, Mr. Win Bigly. If you keep winning this bigly, hell knows. Maybe the Confederacy will be besieging Washington once more. Keep winning bigly. Bigly all the way. Bigly, bigly, bigly. Jingle bigly, bigly all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse, actually in about 1,000 horsepowered armored vehicle running out of Iraq. But okay, yeah, that doesn't rhyme. I never could sing very well. Could I now? So, as we've seen already from traditional Jews, Israel is bringing grief to all Jews everywhere. And look, at least half the Jews in this world don't support Israel. And probably more and more, particularly the younger generation. But because Israel claims to represent all Jews, they bring grief on everybody. By the way, this is how Israel got a lot of its immigration in from places like Iraq. Mossad would go in there, commit terrorist acts, so the Jews, the local population of Jews would get blamed, and then they'd feel forced to move. into Israel, where then they would get their proper brainwashing. It didn't work in Iran, but it definitely worked in places like Syria, and it worked in places like Iraq. So there's that. So now inadvertently they're expanding it out to everybody without actually having to try to do terrorist acts against Jews in other countries, just by being what they are and advertising that they represent all Jews, which they don't. But the IDF does continue to. It's not a one-sided war. Iran is taking a lot of damage. Let's be honest about this. It's just that they can withstand that damage as a civilizational state without collapsing. The IDF continues to hit. The IDF in America continues to hit various locations. They've hit steel plants, Iranian steel plants. So Iran returned the favor by hitting the Yehud steel plant in Israel, the Falath steel plant in Bahrain, the Emirates steel plant in the Emirates, the United Steel Industrial Company plant in Kuwait, the Hadid plant in Saudi Arabia, and the Qatar steel plant in Qatar. So yes, they've returned the favor. As Iran said, we're not going to fight an eye for an eye. You take our eye, we'll take your head. That's the fight that they're bringing on to the West, and this is the West that that President Win Bigley has already said they have no missiles, no rockets. This is Israel being hit. Yeah, with no rockets, no missiles, but for some reason they keep getting hit. And this is a very short clip of videos because there's a lot more of it, but you've seen them, and they are continuing to get hit. This is a video of, by the way, of Prince Sultan Air Base getting hit. The official side from the U.S. is 24 wounded. Okay, 24 wounded, you might as well take probably about at least 5-6 killed and the rest wounded, heavily wounded, because they'll tell, oh, they had concussions, and then you find out they're missing limbs. So yeah, that's how the regime in D.C. downplays reality on a very active basis. And the videos of Israel getting hit back. Now here's a video of from one of the residential areas in Tehran that got hit, and they are hitting Tehran.
We are currently on Rejai Street in southern Tehran. The building you see here was struck around 3 a.m. local time. So far, they have been able to extract 3 fatalities, but there are still many people trapped under the rubble. Yesterday's attacks on Tehran occurred in the east, west, and in the center. The attacks from around 1 to 3 a.m. were very heavy, the most intense we've had over the last 27 days. Rescue forces are currently clearing away the debris from the collapsed building, which is scattered in front of this house, hoping to extract anyone trapped inside. You can see the volume of the rubble. This is just a portion that remains here, which has blocked the alley and prevented traffic from passing through.
It was around 4 a.m. There was such an explosive sound as our bed flew up. I got up and saw that it was just like a storm, hitting the doors and walls. My wife was on one side, my granddaughter on the other, screaming and screaming. We came out, and there was so much smoke that I couldn't see. The only thing I could do was bring my wife and children out to the alley, and then I saw people just screaming at our neighbor. We saw that all the houses had collapsed, and the fire was raging like the end of the world, until the forces arrived, and the firefighters. My son is a firefighter too. He's also here. They came and moved things around. I think about 4 or 5 people were martyred. There were a few wounded. And you're seeing the debris yourselves now. It's a residential house. We know these residents. We don't even have a military presence. There are no military people in this alley.
The fire department has come here and is trying to help extract the people who were trapped and those killed under the rubble.
You can see the situation here. They're targeting residential areas. Now they're attacking ordinary people. There are currently about 10 to 15 ordinary people in this building. The firefighters and Red Crescent have brought them out. My colleagues, a 2-year-old child was there this morning. The blast wave threw him from the building across the street. Woman and child. I don't know why they hit residential buildings.
You can see the intensity of the explosion and the destruction of buildings, one after another. The structures in the southern part of Tehran are such that you can see the alleys are very narrow. And when an explosion like this occurs, the damage extends to the entire alley, so that not only is the targeted building is damaged, but all the houses up to this point. You can see destruction to the point where the alley is blocked. Now a loader is forcefully opening the path to get here, and behind me, you can see damaged cars due to the intensity of the debris. We can see people, families who live in these houses, have been told to wait over there and not come forward until safety is established here. These are the people waiting for this site to open, and their families are waiting to see if they can find those who are trapped under the rubble.
Areas. Look, when this knockout blow attempt comes, and it could be by the time this video is out, it could be tomorrow, any of these days, they're going to attempt carpet bombing of Iranian cities. There's going to be a lot of casualties. I mean, let's look at it realistically. That's how the U.S. normally plays. Ever since World War II and the firebombing of every German city, of all the Japanese cities, I'm not even talking about Nagasaki, Hiroshima. I'm talking about 500,000 killed in Japan in one firebombing raid that lasted a couple of days. I'm talking about 5 million civilians killed in Germany during World War II, burned to death in all these cities. I'm talking about over 70,000 French killed and 200,000 injured in northern French villages, lots of which didn't even have German troops in them, but were wiped out anyways. I'm talking about 3 million killed in Vietnam. I'm talking about, I don't know how many millions killed in North Korea, but the complaint was there's nothing left to hit in Pyongyang, but they're being sent to bomb Pyongyang anyways. I'm talking about Yugoslavia. I'm talking about all these. This is a standard operating procedure. We can't destroy the enemy as military, so we try to murder off their civilians to, quote, break their will. Never works, just gets a lot of civilians killed. This is from We Love Peace and Democracy and all that crowd that cheers on mass murder and destruction. But there's some foreign people over there. Better hope that never comes to you, because if it ever comes to you, the revenge from the world, your victims will be too horrid to contemplate. So anyways, we're still there on that issue. Bashir, by the way, the Bashir nuclear power plant's been hit a 3rd time. There is a radioactive plume that started coming out, not a very big one, but one that started coming out after the 2nd hit. So basically you have radioactive water molecules in a gaseous cloud. And of course, as things would have it, are heading into Kuwait by the trade winds. So I guess Kuwait gets to bite another one of another bite of the shit sandwich the U.S. has created for it. And if that ever goes into a meltdown, again, think what we're saying. America and Israel are committing mass war crimes by attacking a nuclear power plant. Is it any surprise that we saw the same thing for the Ukrainians, constantly attacking the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant? They learned from their masters. So nuclear power plants and committing a massive biological, ecological crime against humanity, worse than what the Israelis did by bombing the fuel depots and exposing to acid rain, carcinogenic acid rain, 10 different nations, is being done by America and Israel again. Surprise, surprise. Of course, America did the same in Yugoslavia. People start to forget about that. Under Bill Clinton, they bombed the chemical plants, poisoned the Danube and parts of the Black Sea. Even when the Serbs said, at least let us get the chemicals out, and then you can bomb the plant. I said, no, we're just bombing the plant because America gets American military and the Epstein elites who run the military. The Epstein elites get off on poisoning the earth. The Greens get off on poisoning the earth because the Greens are the biggest warmongers that humanity's ever seen. They came in a disguise of, we're for the environment. They have no problem murdering the environment as long as they get to kill human beings in that process. So, I mean, just to realize who we're dealing with here. What have I missed? Have I missed anything off of a very long list? Well, Bahrain, by the way, protests are still growing. And it's questionable whether the king is still there or whether he and his family have fled. So that process is still ongoing. We'll see where that goes. I think the Bahraini government's going to fall. It's going to fall hard. Bahrain is going to fall. Qatar, questionable whether that corporation incorporated in the guise of a country, the leadership there is ever going to come back to rebuild everything that needs to be rebuilt. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in damages out of their pockets versus just cutting bait and leaving. By the way, for those who don't understand cutting bait, I personally don't like fishing too much, but for the fishermen out there, they know what they're talking about. It's when your bait gets stuck and you can't pull it out and you cut the string. So you walk away, you leave it where it's at. You walk away, cut bait and leave. That's what that term means. So there you go. If your question, what does that actually mean? That's what it means. It's a fisherman's term. Most of my friends like to fish, so you hear various ones like that. But now you know what I'm saying when I'm saying cut bait and leave. Oh yes, Hezbollah. Hezbollah has created a kill zone in northern, future northern Israel, if Israel gets its way, or otherwise known as the southern third of Lebanon. Reports are coming in over the last 3-4 days of up to 100 Merkava tanks damaged or destroyed. 22 destroyed absolutely by video confirmation. You watch this. You're watching the video of this. Note something very interesting on the Merkava tanks. They're being destroyed by RPG-laden drones. And what are they all missing? That's right, they're missing grading. They're missing any kind of defenses against drones. Very interesting that the IDF is in such a position after its combat at Hamas, where they actually did put grills on these tanks, that these tanks are pulled up out of the northern divisions, pulled up out of reserves, have no grading. They have no preparation for modern warfare. And 100 tanks have been destroyed or damaged in a matter of about 4 days using drones mostly. Some RPGs, Cornet-type missiles, anti-tank missiles, but mostly drones. Some people don't learn very fast now, do they? So apparently they weren't too prepared for the attempted annexation of southern Lebanon, but they're still trying. And the biggest way they're doing it is to massacre the population of anybody that's left, drive them north, and try to burn out anything that's left of that society that's been there, like the city of Tyre, for 4,000 years, and destroy any beauty in that area. I don't know why they really like destroying everything that's beautiful. Maybe it's deep-seated hatred for beauty. I don't know. These people are evil. I mean, let's face the reality of it. And I'll close on this. Russia has now sent 313 tons of aid, medical aid, things of that nature, to Iran. And true, Azerbaijan seems to have come around and decided not to be there to try to conquer northern Azerbaijan in Iran and not start a war that would lead to its own destruction, and is allowing Russian transport of aid into Iran through through the Azerbaijan territory. So that's how you tell. You know your friends when you're in trouble, not during the good times. The good times, you get the good time friends. When things go weary and you have problems, this is when you see who your friends really are. And we'll end on this, because Iran's getting to see its friends. It's going to see the countries that are supporting it and have got its back. Its allies. And the countries that are going to be rebuilding Iran after this to get Iran back on its feet and moving forward into the future after all of this is over. We'll close this out. We are 2 weeks away from the resurrection of Christ. For us Orthodox anyways, Holy Pascha. Let's pray for all the victims of these wars on all sides, just the regular people, the women and children, the innocent people, the people protesting against these wars of aggression. Those have been killed, and those that will be killed probably by the regimes that they're protesting against, or will be oppressed by them. Let's pray for all those people, and that we're still here next week, that President Win Bigley hasn't done something even stupider than he's already done. We'll see. We will see. That's about all I can say. So, and now pray for the American soldiers. They're about to be sacrificed by the Epstein elites. I mean, let's talk reality. These guys signed up under the propaganda of you're defending America and American rights and liberties and all that. They were brainwashed into this, and now they're going to be getting killed for the Epstein elites. A lot of guys have wisened up to this, but you go to jail at best if you refuse orders. The U.S. can do summary executions, by the way. It's within the Uniform Code of Military Justice for those refusing to follow, quote, legal orders. That you're asked to sacrifice your life and to kill others for an entity that doesn't give a damn about America as an American soldier, that's irrelevant. To the Uniform Code of Military Justice. In this case, it's traitorism on the side of the government, but that's how it runs. We'll pray for their souls too, because they're going to leave behind widows, orphans. They're going to leave behind parents, grieving parents, and friends and relatives, because they're going to die not for the U.S. or for some kind of ethereal freedoms, which are being stripped away inside the U.S., but the people they're going to have to go die for. The irony is beyond incredible. The future historians will be writing the irony of America, the death of America and the collapse of America. This will be the big chapter where the soldiers are told that they're fighting for freedoms that are being stripped from them at home by the people to defend the people that are actually doing the stripping of the freedoms. It's the insanity of all of this involved. A lot of those guys are going to be dead by possibly by the end of this next week. For what? For what? And we've been saying that to the Ukrainians, by the way. For what are you dying? You're fighting for a regime that looks at you like meat to be sold at the market. for Western, quote, aid that they pocket, and that people giving them the aid pocket. So you're dying for corruption. You're dying for the anti-Christian people that destroy the church, that destroy your own futures. What are you fighting for? What are you dying? You know, maybe it's time to wisen up across the board. Who you serve. I mean, look, left wing, right wing, that's a dead dialectic. The real dialectic is localist and globalist. Or localists can be called patriots, nationalists, whatever you want to call them. The people who want to take care of their countries and their people versus the globalists that look at everybody who isn't part of their clique or part of maybe their servant, upper tier servant clique as just biomaterial to be used and gotten rid of or constrained down to the proper amount, whether that be $1 billion or $500 million or what have you. This is what we're dealing with. It's time to wake the hell up. Well, we still have a world we can save. The globalists are not a majority. They're not even a minority. They're a tiny minority. A much bigger minority if you count the people that they buy off to serve them. But they're still a very small minority, but they're destroying the majority. And it is their aim. It always has been. To get it down to a herd they can control and feed off of. In all literal means of that word. God bless.